Is Christian Cage's gimmick getting stale? Powerhouse Hobs looked great in defeat, and AEW Grand Slam has been moved from being a pay-per-view event in a stadium to being a TV special in an arena. But that's not quite as bad as it sounds. We're going to talk about all of that and more. I'm Ben Allison, and I've analysed last night's episode of AEW Dynamite, and here are my 5 key findings. In at number 5, I want to see Omega and Ospreay team up to take on Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita. Kenny Omega versus Brian Cage from a purely in-ring perspective was the highlight of last night's episode of AEW Dynamite. There's no doubt about it. It was fantastic to see Kenny Omega back in an AEW ring wrestling, and Brian Cage once again showed why he is so underrated. But it was Will Ospreay helping Kenny Omega at the end of the match, with then Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita standing tall over both men that got me really excited. We've seen Will Ospreay have bangers against Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita over the past year, so seeing him team up with Omega to face them once again, I mean that's got tag team match of the year contender written all over it. Plus, it will mean that we are one step closer to seeing Kenny Omega versus Kyle Fletcher, Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita, 2 matches that I desperately want to see in 2025. In at number 4, Powerhouse Hobs looked great in defeat. Jon Moxley not only needed help from 3 members of the Death Riders, but he also needed to use the briefcase to eventually manage to defeat Powerhouse Hobs last night. I mean, you could tell Moxley really wanted to put over Powerhouse Hobs, and he absolutely did. But the question is, how from here can you keep Powerhouse Hobs having this momentum? Because this kind of does feel like his entire AEW run. He's had momentum, then he's lost it, and it's been a vicious cycle over and over again. So how from here can they make sure that he continues to feel important? The difficulty is, AEW have so many top heels right now, but they're all in existing feuds, and none of them can really take losses. I mean, maybe you could have him dethrone Okada, but I kind of feel like they're saving Kenny Omega for that. Maybe, and I don't know how I'd feel about this, but maybe have him dethrone Chris Jericho for the Ring of Honor title, but then I would fear that he'd get stuck in the Jericho vortex a little bit. But hey, it's a good problem to have having too many top stars, but it is just really important they do find something for Hobbs. In at number 3, Megan Bane has returned to AEW and is presumably all elite. The 26-year-old has previously had 7 matches on AEW, and all of them were on AEW Dark, the majority taking place in late 2021, early 2022, but she did have one as recent as mid-2023. Since then, she's had an incredible run over in Japan, and also had a few bangers on the independent scene as well. Honestly, she is a heck of a talent. And last night, she made her AEW Dynamite debut in the Women's Casino Gauntlet match, and she looked incredible, but the crowd didn't really know who she was. Now, the fans did get louder for her as the match went on, and she did have a little bit of a star-making performance, right? She was probably the highlight of the match, but even still, this isn't necessarily how you should introduce a new signing. Surprise debuts should only really be done when fans know who the wrestler is, and unfortunately Megan Bane just isn't that well known yet. But you can easily save this situation, right? All you have to do is next week air a promo package explaining who she is to fans, explaining her character, giving them a reason to connect with her. As amazing as she is in the ring, AEW have a bunch of great in-ring wrestlers. You have to give fans a reason to connect with your character. But if they do that, I really do think the future of Megan Bane in AEW will be really promising. But before we go any further, if you guys could like and subscribe, I would really appreciate that. Here at Wrestling Republic, we do between 5 to 10 free videos every single week, and over the next few weeks, we're going to start to do a few more as well. But additionally, we do a live daily stream 7 days a week, every single day, at 8 p.m. UK, 3 p.m. Eastern, and 12 p.m. Pacific. We have a rotating panel. It is always very fun, and we show your comments throughout. I really hope to see you guys there. Thank you. In at number 2, Christian Cage's father gimmick is starting to get a little bit stale. And I absolutely hate to say this, because I am such a big Christian Cage fan, and this gimmick has been incredible, but right now, it's kind of just lost all its momentum. Considering how long this storyline has gone on for, the Hook match last night should have felt like a huge deal, but it just absolutely didn't, and obviously the DQ at the end made things a lot worse, but it didn't feel important to begin with, truthfully. And sure, seeing Samoa Joe was fantastic at the end, but this feud should have meant a lot more. I mean, considering how like a year ago Christian Cage was the best thing on television, it is crazy how far he's fallen since then, and he really does need a refresh. Hopefully we see him and Cope in a tag team again soon, because I think that is the answer here, but it is just disappointing that this has kind of gone in that direction. And in at number 1, AEW Grand Slam becoming a TV special is the right move. Now, at first, when you hear this was meant to be a pay-per-view in a stadium, and it's now a TV special in an arena, it does sound bad. But I do think this is the right move. Don't get me wrong, AEW certainly did an awful job at promoting this show. They did a terrible job at selling tickets. I mean, they sent to do the press tour a retired Paul White and a Toni Storm who at the time was claiming she was retired. I mean, you basically had two people who wouldn't be wrestling on the event promoting the event. I mean, it was doomed from the start. But hey, at the end of the day, you do miss every shot you don't take. They took this shot and it's missed anyway, but hopefully they'll learn from it. But online, people are now making fun of this no longer even being a pay-per-view, but in no world should this have been a pay-per-view. The show airs at 2:30 Eastern Time in the United States. Nobody would buy that pay-per-view if it was live. Pretty much nobody, right? It makes a lot more sense to do what they're doing and have it air the next day on national television at 8 p.m. in prime time. And undoubtedly TNT will be paying them more for this, right? And probably more than they'd have actually have had for the pay-per-view, but it will certainly mean more people will end up seeing it. Now, internationally, it should still be a pay-per-view, and it should air live. The reason for this is obviously, for most of the world, it's actually in a better time compared to, the usual United States pay-per-view times. So I would do it as a pay-per-view internationally, but in the United States, a TV special makes perfect sense. But overall, last night's AEW Dynamite was an okay show. I definitely would say it was a step down from last week, but it was alright. I don't know how I feel about this MJF Jeff Jarrett storyline. It's just not really working for me yet, but it's early days. I'm going to give it a chance, and that's why I didn't really overanalyze it today, per se. But hopefully next week it picks up some more momentum, and hopefully AEW bounces back a little bit next week as well. But still, it was enjoyable enough. Let me know your thoughts on the show down below, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video where I will analyze Friday Night SmackDown on Saturday. See you guys then. Peace!